Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello and welcome, everyone. I have David Mandell, co-founder and CEO of Whiskey House of Kentucky today. Welcome, David.
Jesse, well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I am tickled pink. I swear, when I learned of what you guys were doing, it was so much in my wheelhouse. I knew instantly. I was like, I gotta have David. He's gotta have my podcast, because what you guys are doing is simply amazing, and you're all in on innovation and taking things to the next level. I can't wait to kind of get into some of that. You guys really invested highly into technology. I don't know if you used AI. I think you probably put some of those things in place, which is, I'm sure, head and shoulders above any or most in the world. So and your facility isn't small. I mean, you're on what, 170 acres?
Yeah, 178 acres. Yes.
78 acres. So it's not small.
178 acres. 110,000 square feet in phase one. So it's a good sized facility.
Yeah, that's huge. Also you guys, let's get into your journey, and then, because I'm just so excited, I want to jump in, but let's meet David. Okay. So where are you calling from, the distillery today?
I am. We're based here in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. So about 40 minutes south of Louisville.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Okay. And are you from that area?
No, I'm not. I've been here for a little over a decade now.
Okay.
So I came here in 2013 to start Bardstown Bourbon Company, but I originally grew up in Philadelphia. And so that's where my journey started 50 years ago. I hate saying that, because this was the year of the 50th birthday. And
happy birthday. I'm not far behind you.
Well, while they like to say age is just a number, it's not.
I'm sure you get this all the time, but you look like a celebrity.
Nah, I do not get that. It's very nice
Really?
of you to say that, but the real question is which one.
Okay, so I always forget his name, but he's the Avenger with the bow and arrow, and he was in Mayor of Bardstown. Oh, I put Bardstown. Got it.
And I love our mayor of Bardstown, but the two of us do not look alike. He's a good-looking man too.
Jeremy Renner.
Oh God, I'll take that.
He's really good. He's great. I love him as an actor. And Mayor, he's in. It's not Bardstown. I don't know what it is. Anyway, he's mayor of something. Not really, but that's the name of the show. It's kind of messed up, but fun to watch, I guess. Yeah. He's an interesting character. Yes. But anyway, I digress. So you're from Philly. Are you an Eagles fan?
I am. Held season tickets since 1997. So wow. It's been a long time. My father and I still have the tickets to this day. We don't get to as many games. We end up selling a lot of them, but I do take the boys. I take my kids. We get to a handful of games every year. We certainly watch all of them, and it's not a bad record so far. So we're happy with 12-2. So
yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good, especially losing one of the Kelsey brothers.
Yep. Yes. No, it's been. Listen. After being an Eagles fan for as long as I've been, I used to, in my early days, judge my week by, how the Eagles did.
Oh, no.
That's how much it affected me at this point. I don't do that anymore. And I think that's where most Philly fans get to, is you just, you assume you're going to be disappointed at some point. And if it doesn't go that way, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, they can't be great all the time. I mean, we're Kansas City Chiefs, and we're just enjoying the ride. We've been okay for a very long time, but now we're kind of going through that, era of the GOAT, right? When he was playing at
okay. Here's the problem. So my business partner, the other co-founder, John Hargrove, is a huge Chiefs fan. So he's got tickets to the Chiefs, and so this is something that I deal with on a regular basis. So the two of us talking, this is the same thing. So
my mom was from Kansas City, so we were Chiefs and Royals fans, and of course we default to the Chicago, and then there's always been because in Iowa you don't really we don't have anybody, so we pick them all. Just not the Wisconsin team.
That's right.
Yeah, the Green Bay. I know that it's built on cool principles and a cool Sicilian guy, and they own their team and everything. I just grew up, it was Brett Favre growing up. Like, we always lost against Brett Favre.
Right.
So that's why. Silly. I know. It's very silly.
All right.
So how did you get involved in the industry?
Well, it's been a very interesting journey, and so I started my career off as an attorney. So I went to school in St. Louis. I was an undergrad at Washington University.
Okay.
And I was a history major and an English minor, and really sort of got to the end of college and said, well, what am I going to do with this? I wasn't sure, what my career path was ultimately going to be. So I decided to go to law school, and that was predominantly driven by watching the O.J. Simpson trial and enjoying that at that stage, which probably was my junior or sophomore year of college. But I went to Temple University. I went to Temple University Law School in Philadelphia. I ended up staying in Philadelphia and practicing at a law firm called Blank Rome. And at that time, we represented Governor Ridge. So we did a lot of outside counsel work for him. And I, at that time, also ended up doing a lot of election fraud work, which ended up sending me to Florida on the recount as a very young man. And
was that the Gore? That wasn't Gore.
It was Bush Gore, and I was representing George W. Bush, and I was sent down there doing the military ballot arguments. I had 3 counties: Lee County, Collier County, and Manatee County. And if you can imagine this, I was probably 20, I don't know now, 25 or something like that, thrown into that. And I came back from that after the Supreme Court ruled, and the chairman of the law firm at the time said, basically, for what you have done, you should consider a political appointment in the administration. It's like, no, it's not something I ever even thought about. I wasn't particularly political, and so I did it. I went down there before 9/11, and shortly after 9/11, I went in as counsel to the chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. So we went in right September 28th, 2001. And that's what started my career in government. We spent a year there, and then Marion Blakey was appointed head of the FAA. So I went over as chief of staff of the FAA.
Oh, wow.
For the next 4 years. But it was during a trip in 2002 that I was out with my college roommate after a day. It's crazy. We were meeting with Elon Musk at the time because the FAA regulates suborbital flight, and they had just started, SpaceX, and they had the Falcon 9 rocket in the hangar in West Hollywood. And we were out drinking in the evening, Red Bull and vodka at 1:00 in the morning at the Sky Bar, myself and Dan. And we said, what are we doing? We're having a cocktail that's not making us tired. Why can't we just make alcohol that doesn't make you tired? And so we left from that trip, worked on it nights and weekends, and 2 years later, we launched Pink Vodka, which was the first caffeinated alcohol in the U.S., out of a 2-bedroom apartment on the Lower East Side of New York in Stuyvesant Town, and that started the spirits journey.
Pink Vodka, is it still around?
It is not. It is not. It was a Dutch vodka infused flavorlessly with caffeine and guarana. Beautiful product. We built that to 45 states, 5 international markets, about 75,000 cases.
Wow.
We sold that in 2009, And I love to say that that was a success. That business was not a success. All of the fun money that went into building that brand and expanding that brand very rapidly, which, as looking back, was a mistake. But be that as it may, we learned a lot from that process. It's something we can talk a lot about. But anyway, we sold it in 2009 with Houlihan Lokey when, of course, the market collapsed and all the fun money that went into building that brand dried up. And so we sold it with a long tail on it. And then a product called Four Loko came into the market and destroyed the fun of caffeine and alcohol for everybody. That was the end of the caffeine and alcohol craze at that moment.
Yeah, Four Loko.
Four Loko.
I don't even know if people are still drinking it.
Yes, I think they are. They ended up taking the caffeine out of it. That was never the problem, by the way, with Four Loko. The problem with Four Loko, well, that's also about the size of the can at that time too. And so the problem with Four Loko is it was a massive can, pop top. I think, it's like 23 ounces or something. And it had the equivalent of 5 servings of alcohol in it. So the caffeine, which is regulated by the TTB, is 200 parts per million, is actually relatively small in the grand scheme of things. That was not the problem. The problem was it was presented as a single serving, and young individuals, whether they were of age or underage, were chugging these things because you couldn't taste the alcohol. They were very fruit flavored. And you're consuming 5 servings of alcohol at one time. You drink 2 of those, and it's you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. Yeah, dangerous.
And that's where the problem. So it wasn't the caffeine, but created a mess.
Yeah, it sure did.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
So very, interestingly, we after Pink, Dan went back to LA. I went back down to DC, and we did a lot of beverage consulting among other things that we were doing at the time. When we got into whiskey, we actually got involved in a project with Hillhaven Lodge with Brett Ratner at the time. As she was developing what ultimately became Hillhaven Lodge whiskey. And we did the original plan for that. This is before Diageo. It's actually a story that most people don't know. And they wanted to do rum. We said, you really need to do whiskey. We put the whole plan together for them. We had met them during our Pink Vodka days. And it was 2009. And really, you had just sort of the meteoric rise of American whiskey was beginning. And, and what we saw in the market was there was a need for, more products, particularly a different positioning on whiskey at that time. And so we did a lot of research. We did a lot of work on it. And that project ended up not moving forward till years later. But we came off of that and the work that we did, and we said, we really need whiskey is where things are headed. And so with our primary investor, who was my other business partner at Bardstown Bourbon Company, we started Bardstown Bourbon Company. And I came out to Kentucky in 2013, founded the company, and moved out here. And, we embedded ourselves in the community. Dan moved from England. Another woman, Garnett Black, who worked with me for years, was my right hand at National Transportation Safety Board and at FAA, and then Pink Vodka. She and her husband moved here, and we all settled in Bardstown and started, an absolutely amazing company, which, of course, you see where it is today. And that, that in and of itself, we could talk for 2 hours.
I know.
Very easily.
What was the thought process that kind of went behind that? And where did, you had MGP, right? That was around, I think there might have been
This was really, it was very interesting because you look back at these times and you say, how did you ever do this? And, in many ways, Bardstown was the culmination of everything that, we had learned, myself, Dan, Garnett, from all of our jobs. You take certain skills and you bring them from, each part of your career, and certainly from, law. I learned a certain skill set, which was predominantly a way of thinking and writing. From, running and being, a high level at National Transportation Safety Board. And National Transportation Safety Board learned crisis management. FAA learned crisis management, large organization management. Pink Vodka, we learned starting up in the alcohol space. And
that's when you started the legalities.
Well, yeah, and really what we learned most about Pink was how to build a brand as an independent in the spirit space, what not to do. And we made probably 99% of the mistakes that everybody that gets into the business that doesn't know the business makes. And so...
But, even with that brand, you said you got that brand up to 75,000 cases. There's only a handful of people in the world that have ever done that.
It's true. It's true.
That's huge.
It's very true. It's huge. But at the same time, again, it wasn't the right way to grow it. And so now, look, it wouldn't have mattered in the end anyway because of what happened with caffeine and alcohol. But we were determined to taking everything that we learned and bringing that to Bardstown and saying, you know what, we're now going to do this the right way. And what's interesting, and I'll just kind of a prelude to when we get to Whiskey Houses, because we got the chance to do it again after that. And so Whiskey House was taking everything we did at Bardstown and actually doing it all over again and improving even further. And so you rarely get these opportunities in life, and we got a couple of them. And so Bardstown was very much an evolutionary process. We did not come and say, this is what we're going to do. Here's the whole game plan. And it's all laid out. It was not like that at all. It wasn't like that at all. We bootstrapped it. We figured it out. It was Bardstown is a story of this amazing group of people that came together at a moment in time and created an absolutely magical place. But it did not happen with a plan. It was an evolution. And so when we started, I never forget the day I stood out where the property is here, and the city was showing me, our head of economic development, Kim Houston, was showing me the property across the street. It's a much smaller property. She said, this is what we think for you. We looked at where we say, I said, well, what about this? There's 100 acres here. It's like perfect. It's on the parkway. No, you can't have that. That's like, we're keeping that for attracting really big business. Oh, we're going to be a big business. And so that's where it began. And, we had a tremendous amount of vision as we developed it, but also the community trusted us and we delivered. And that's something that, not everybody understands. And, we worked really hard over years. And part of that was us all moving there, us all getting very much involved in the community, but delivering on that vision. As we built Bardstown, we proved to Bardstown, Kentucky, because you remember, we were the first distillery in 100 years, new distillery there. And so...
First distillery in 100 years there.
First new distillery in 100 years.
Wow. Well, there's been droughts.
Yeah.
If you get the guys together that have been doing this while, multi-generational, distillers, and they're like, there was a time when we could give it away.
That's right.
And they all came together and held hands and said, let's get through this together.
Yeah, and when we came in, the first question, that I wrestled with is what set the vision was, well, what's the story? What are we going to be? Because what you saw at the time was a lot of brands trying to either make up stories about this crazy heritage that, my grandfather was a distiller, these new brands, or they're resurrecting old brands. So look, we're not doing this. We're going to go the opposite direction. And we are going to build a place that is really about celebrating not only the craft of making whiskey that brings this community together, but in a transparent and open way. And so from the design of the facility, every aspect of the facility, because what was happening at the time is there was this push that was beginning. And a lot of it was coming from some early, you had some, controversies that were very public about people using MGP liquid and not being open about it, right? And so we said, look, we're gonna deal with this by not only we're gonna say everything about what we do. We're gonna put it on our labels. We're gonna talk about it. We are gonna be about transparency in whiskey making. And it went as far as even saying we didn't have a master distiller. So this is a distilling team. Now what I did with Steve Nally was a master distiller, but we approached this as a team. We approached this as a lot of different things, and so. That was the beginning, but that's not what built Bardstown. What built Bardstown was the idea of doing custom whiskey production. And the collaborative distilling program. And we came up with that idea as we saw in the market, you had brands that were being produced at Heaven Hill and Beam that were getting cut off their contracts because they now needed their own supply because everything was growing.
They were growing.
MVP didn't really do custom. You bought like 3 or 4 mash bills, and you buy them off the shelf, they age it. And so we said, building this facility, let's go out there and get in this business and change the design of what we're building. We went out and sold the concept, and we sold out the capacity before we even done building it.
Wow. That's incredible. I wish I could do that with my business.
Well, that's just the beginning of the story because it was easier said than done. So we did that, went out and sold it. And then the question was, wait a minute, how are we going to do this? Because Bardstown was not designed to do that. And so it was a very, very much a rudimentary design. We jerry-rigged it because we built that. We started with $11 million. So we bootstrapped this business. That's another crazy story. But so what we had to do is we kind of jerry-rigged it. And it wasn't, and when we started that, in those days, what we were doing is we were actually really starting off doing advanced manufacturing whiskey, doing multiple mash bills in a facility, 10, 20, 30, ultimately. We got up to about 50. That was unheard of, doing that. And so the facility was not designed to do that. And so in the early days, we really struggled. We were not doing well. We almost lost our contract with Diageo for doing bullet. And it wasn't until I was able to attract John Hargrove, who was the superstar young distiller that came over with an advanced food manufacturing background. He was at Barton at the time. They had the other half of the bullet contract. They were getting the gold standard. They were knocking out of the park. He was brought in with the new Sazerac team. I recruited him to join us at Bardstown in late 2017, and that changed the whole trajectory. And so we were then able to reach out.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Huge. This is it was the single most important change decision in the history of Bardstown Bourbon Company. It was John, joining the distilling team because I was spending a huge amount of my time. We all work on the distilling side. We didn't know distilling. We had the concepts, we had the idea, we had the vision, we could bring people together, but we didn't. At the end of the day, we didn't know it. So when there were problems, all I could do was try to bring people together. And when he joined us, we went from 25,000 to 50 to 100, HACCP certification, ISO certification, and then we were able to then take our attention and go do the things that we knew, build a brand, build a restaurant, build a visitor's experience, all of that. And so that allowed us to then focus on all those things, which formed, the foundation for what, you see really thriving out there now.
Yeah. So how many brands are made there now?
I'm not sure what it is, now. And so, when we left, we were producing for, those, 15-stone companies at that time. And so, we sold the business 2 years ago, 2022. But it was a really incredible journey. And so each step of the way, so you'd say that about the distillery, building the restaurant is a whole other, we could talk an hour
whole other part
about building the restaurant. I mean, we could tell you a whole hour about that, building the visitors center and the team that we brought together that is doing that. And one of the real superstars, if not the biggest superstar out there, Dan Calloway. I hired Dan. Dan was the manager at Decca in Louisville at a restaurant. And he came in with us when we were just about to, build the restaurant. We built, the team. There was the beverage team out there. And we said to them, we want to approach this totally differently. And Dan started as, running the restaurant and then the beverage program, and then went up. He's now the vice president of innovation. He's a supremely talented individual, and it was something that I saw in him very early on. And I think that's part of the story is you find great people and you find the talent and you let them, give them the room and the space to thrive and the environment, and amazing things happen. And that's what happened there in those early days. Now, look, it's sold to private equity. It's a different place now.
Yeah.
But, we took all of that and all of the lessons from that and founded Whiskey House.
It's not very often I hear any leader say those words. And it's something that I myself have struggled with in my career, trying to find someone to just to do those exact things, because when you're absolutely right in finding those gems out there because they're there, you just gotta listen, you just gotta be aware, right? And let them run. There's just not many people that manage situations or people like that, because I believe people don't always know how great they are and what they can achieve. Other people can sometimes see it, people earlier or faster, or see it differently. And I feel bad that people don't get those experiences to be their true self, to really explode like that, because all they need is someone like you to empower them, to tell them that. And then they get their confidence and they see that they can do it. And I wish that was more of like a principle of leadership.
Well, it's true, and it's true, and I think it's more than just that. You have to create the entire ecosystem in the business. Yep. That so it all works together. And sometimes the best and the most creative people are also some of the most challenging too, right? I mean, they just are. And so it's finding them, and then like figuring out what's the best way to make them successful in the business. And I'm very lucky because my partners in this business, John Hargrove, is absolutely a superstar at operations. Like, I could not do what he does in a million years. And Dan Lind, who is our chief strategy officer, but also in really strategic financial position, he was the CFO. And then because he's based in England, we also have a CFO full time here. But he was the CFO of Bardstown, and he still plays a very strong financial role. My point there is, you give me like basic math to do, and I can't do it. I'm very honest about that. It's not my strong set, it's not my skill set, but he's great at it. And so I've got John with operations, I've got Dan on the financial side, and then surrounding yourself with great people,
yep.
Allows me to do what, I believe my best skill sets are, and everything from the vision of the business to setting the direction, to the sales side of it, to the customer, acquisition and working with our customers, to, everything from kind of design to, working to create the, right, environment within the facility. And so we make a great team, but you got to have all that. And so it takes a lot of work.
It does. It takes a lot of work. I mean, it's not a marriage, but it's like a marriage, right? Because you all, once you get to know your role, you run, right? But sometimes you got to learn how to do that. And, small companies that want to grow, that's a big challenge. My wife is certified in helping companies achieve that goal, right? Yep. There's personality tests. You need an operator, you need a processor, you need a visionary, you need all the things. And if you can have the 4 things, there's no stopping you, right? Because you have those skill sets that are so important to build a very, a good, strong business.
It really is. And I think, over time, we're kind of, I know I'm doing a little tangent here. I think, there's so many lessons that you can learn. And, one of the things that I've certainly taken away now doing this 3 times, you're never going to get perfection. Right. Mm-hmm. And you're never going to find perfection in any individual. And so really kind of creating that balance both in yourself, as you drive and try to push people, understanding like, this is what we can accomplish now. And here's where we're going to get to, and figuring out the right balance there of kind of pushing, but also having some patience. And because you're never going to find anybody that's perfect, and you're not going to be able to do everything perfectly. And so, as you build, especially in the startup phase, there is a balance there. We drive really fast and really hard here, as you can see, but we're also very careful in terms of not going too far, or making sure that, even little things with, people, and how you work with them and how you handle them, internally there's only so much everybody, can do, and finding that right balance and trying to get the best out of everybody.
Yeah. What do you feel in terms of being a leader is the hardest for you? I'm trying to think of like a different way to word that because it's not great, but I mean, is there anything that stands out that as a leader that you've had over the, your experiences?
Yeah, sure. I guess the way I'll answer that is with a little bit of a kind of story here. And I'll never forget when I when I was appointed chief of staff of the FAA, at the time. And gosh, I was in my very late 20s. I was the youngest one, apparently ever.
Yeah, I would say, and probably since.
Yeah.
Not very many people are capable of doing that in their 20s.
Capable is a totally different thing. Capable is like, was I capable of it? That's really sort of the crux of this. And so, I remember saying to the chairman of the law firm at the time, David Mandell, we had, he took me out for lunch, said, so how you feeling? I remember that first year, but this was early on, and I said, I don't know. He said, you feel like you don't know anything. He said, you feel like everybody knows that you don't know anything. So that's about right. So insecure. I said, yep. And he said, good. You want to feel that way. He said, make sure you feel that way. He said, but what you do is, keep your mouth shut, listen, right? And because I was a lot younger than all the people that were reporting to me, he said, that feeling, he said, use that feeling and have that drive you every single day. And so that was really good advice. And
Very good.
And it's something I look back at, and it's something that I think about, for all of these positions. So, what are some of the things, as a leader? Well, it's challenging sometimes when, you are not by any means the expert. And so I'm in a building right now where everybody here knows a lot more than me about what we're doing on a technical level. And so I think
that's good though. That's good.
Absolutely, it's good.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding that, being able to focus on the things and knowing the things that you're good at, surrounding yourself with the people that are the things that you don't know, and that you're not good at, and having it and figuring out how to get everybody to work together. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge. And now we've gotten to do it multiple times. So I feel like we've really, we really hit an amazing stride here.
Yeah. So do you want to kind of talk about the venture?
Absolutely.
And we'll kind of switch gears here and so you sold the company. And so what's the next thought that y'all are having?
So basically, and I'll kind of fast forward, the sale of Bardstown is another whole other story that could spend another hour on. But so in 2022, I had stepped back from the business. There were 3 owners of the business, myself, Constellation Brands, and the trust of my former business partner who passed away. And so John had stepped back as COO. Dan had, left Bardstown quite some time before that. And the 3 of us got together and we said, there's actually a couple of things that are happening in the market. Well, first of all, we have all this experience. We built the collaborative distilling program, which is the first of its kind, but we never were able to take it to where it needed to go to because the facility in and of itself, was not designed to actually do custom whiskey production, right? So you're constrained by what you originally create. And so we said, well, if you have an opportunity to do it all over again, what would you do differently? And the 3 of us got together and we said, there is a very interesting challenge in the marketplace right now. And that challenge is that when we sold Bardstown bought Green River, which was also another large contract producer. You had Campari bought Wilderness Trail, which is another contract producer. And Luxco and MGP merged, which is also obviously, and that's really the competitive set. But what happened in that dynamic were multiple things. One, all of those companies are now focused on their own brands predominantly. They do contract production, but they're focused on their own brands. This is a very significant shift. It was a significant shift that took place when we sold Bardstown. Private equity come in, totally changes things. And so you've got an inherent conflict of interest in the brand, in the business, because if you're a contract customer, the question is, are they making decisions that prioritize certain interests for their own brands over you as a customer? what happens when those businesses sell? Because when Campari bought Wilderness Trail, they kicked out all their contract customers and they started trying to get them back. And so if you're a branded contract customer and you're looking for a long-term production partner, your question is, do you feel like your best interests are being served there? The company's producing brands that are competing against you in the market, decisions about where you go in the warehouse, decisions about what production you get. When times are good, you get pushed aside. When times are bad, well, then they, show you more attention. So, you know what? We're going to fix this. And that's Whiskey House. And so Whiskey House is now the most advanced distillery in the country, hands down. We do nothing but custom whiskey production for an exclusive group of customers, brands, or companies with a direct pathway of the liquid to a brand, in a facility that is the only facility in the entire world is actually designed to do custom whiskey production. So the design is really a mix, is a melding of advanced food manufacturing meeting distillation, so that you're getting incredible, quality from a massive system, but the flexibility to be able to go down to very small runs if you need to run it all through while keeping complete consistency. And I'll talk more about that. That is a massive engineering challenge, without any conflicts of interest, because we're closed to the public. We don't have our own brands. We don't run hospitality. We don't have sales forces that are out there in the market competing against our customers. We're not running restaurants. Everything here is focused 100% on our customers, all of our attention, completely, and everything from all of the spaces that we built, inside the facility that really bring our customers in here so they can design great liquid with us, great, really differentiated products, and we focus everything with them.
So can you walk through a process? Let's say I came to you, David, and I said, hey, I want to build my own brand. And what is that process? Can you walk us through it?
In most cases, the answer would be, it's not something we would work together on, right? So, and the reason I say that is, our customers that work with us are almost in all cases extremely well established.
Okay.
So we are very selective about who we work for. So we produce for 3 of the largest spirits companies in the world. We do excess production. We do innovation, great craft distilleries at a certain scale, really great brands. Now there are a couple, we'll do some, production for some, new entry brands, but they have, great backing. They have a team that is has a lot of experience in the industry. We do a lot of, do international production. So we are, if you call us, and we meet, we have tons of people that come meet with us all the time, but you have calls say, I'm so-and-so, and I'm just interested in getting into whiskey. I actually talk to everybody, and a lot of that conversation, I can point you in the right direction, but you probably don't need new fill production. If you want to start a brand, go start it, get some excess, get some aged inventory, do something unique to it, go build the brand, but you don't need to be laying down, new barrels for something that you're just trying to get started. There are other companies out there that will do that. They'll take your money, they'll produce it for you. We don't do that.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I didn't even think about, you mentioned something about innovation, and I don't know if Beam is one of your partners, and you certainly don't need to say they are or not, but it's interesting because you have these amazing facilities, and probably you can use AI to create recipes now. I've seen it in the market. One of them is a client of mine. But it would be interesting to have these bigger whiskey houses come collaborate with you guys on innovation. What is the new thing? How can we evolve and, try something completely different? That's really cool. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So some of the things that we can do, again, what's really unique about the design of the facility. And so the design of the facility really represents the life work of John Hargrove and Roger Henley, who was our head of engineering. Roger was the head of engineering with John when they were at Sazerac, and then came with us to Bardstown, and then came with us to Whiskey House. But between the two of them, you have advanced manufacturing, advanced food manufacturing, distillation, and then Roger also has tremendous competencies, not only in kind of the electrical engineering side, but software development. And so he is a real driving force between our move towards Industry 4.0, which is, we have a fully automated facility, but we also collect all the data seamlessly from every aspect of production, every piece of equipment, every pump, every, piece of equipment in our lab, everything's giving off data. We created in-house over 2 years with a very, very significant change to budget by about 10 million at day one. The system in-house to collect all that data and then use that data and then be able to package that data up and begin to give it to our customers in a way that becomes very valuable to them. So we can come back to that. But so we designed the facility so that we can replicate any historical distillation method. So we can produce like Seagram's did. We can take the fermenters down into the 50s. We can do long fermentation times. We can do everything that even with, if you wanted to produce the way Wilderness Trail does with, high infusion cooking, shorter fermentation times, we can affect every single point of control across the system that impacts flavor. And so that flexibility allows lots of different companies to come in and say, let's test something. So we can run 100 barrels as a test run. We run one fermenter, 33,000 gallons. So we can do testing and then we can scale. And so cool. You can do all of that in one facility.
Wow. I got goosebumps
too. All closed loop. So no open top fermentation. I mean, that's nice for tours, but it's not good for production. You're getting cross contamination. If you have multiple different customers you're producing for different recipes. That was one of the problems we had at Bardstown, because you got all open top fermentation. We did that because of the tour, right? So, but we also did it in the other facilities because it was much cheaper to build that kind of system. But you get cross contamination. It's extremely laborious from a quality standpoint, a cleaning standpoint. It's a nightmare. You're putting tarps over everything. You've got your employees handling all of the chemicals. But here, with a closed loop system, it's all fully automated. We can take a fermenter, we can isolate it, we can take it offline, we can clean it. Everything's cleaned internally, automatically discharged. All the wastewater is immediately treated and sent out. No one touches it, right? So
that's amazing.
It's amazing, and you're much, much more sanitary environment.
Yeah,
it's really important in a contract whiskey manufacturer.
Yeah, especially if you're doing runs for several people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we're running. We started July 1st. We've done almost 50,000 barrels already. 18 unique mash bills, 43 different recipes, and that's only in 6 months.
Jeez.
The system is working beautifully.
Are you at full capacity right now?
We are.
Okay, that's amazing. I guess you went out and sold the idea ahead of time too, because
we did.
Yeah.
And so we have some room for next year. Not much, but we have the entire expansion right now. So in a 2-week time period, once we pull the trigger, we can tie in, we can go from 112,000 barrels to 224 in a 2-week, we can tie it in a 2-week shutdown without disrupting operations. So that's what we're working on right now.
And so how big is your production facility right now?
So 110,000 square feet.
Okay.
Facility is very large.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. We have 112,000 barrel capacity annually. Again, all built to expand to 224. We have 19 warehouses on site, traditional rick, but a new design. So they're longer and skinnier. And so we designed that with Busick Construction and with the thermodynamics company so that we engineered the dead zone out of the warehouse. So that's
interesting. What does that mean?
So the most economical warehouse that you build is under Kentucky state regulation is a 58,000 barrel 800. It's just a big box. Cheapest to build. That's what we predominantly build at Bardstown. That's a lot of the other companies build. And it's because it's the cheapest build. Now, it's cheap is relative, right? They're still expensive. And so the problem, though, with that big box is that it's a law of thermodynamics. So in the middle, you just don't get the same airflow. But when you're one of the big companies and you have your own brands, okay, these barrels in here can age differently. We're going to use these for one product, or we're going to blend them into something else. And these areas where we get much greater performance, we're going to use those for higher end products. The problem is that contract manufacturers, whose barrels go in the middle and who gets the good spots, right?
And so I'm glad you guys thought of that before you built them. That's really smart.
So how that decision goes. And so that goes back to my whole point about conflicts of interest. So with us, we wanted to take that out. Everybody gets great maturation performance. So instead of having a big square box, you now have a long rectangle, right? It's more expensive to build, but it's much better. So our customers all get great maturation performance. They can store their barrels as long as they want. We don't have any restrictions. And so we bring one of those online every 4 months. So we'll have 19 of those on site. We have 4. We're about to start our 4th warehouse now. And we'll have to put another about 16 across the street. But the property itself, with the warehouses, bottling coming in 27, a palletized warehouse for finishing projects nobody else has, dedicated space. This will be online next year. 8 different climate control zones. And then we have rail on property too, which is really important for the future of the business, for the international market. So we're located here we got the last 5 parcels in a fully mature industrial park in Elizabethtown, which is an incredible community, manufacturing community, business community here in Kentucky.
Oh, that's great. And easy access east and west for
right on I-65. And so trucking, rail, it's actually faster to get here from the airport in Louisville than it is for me to go from the airport to my house in Bardstown.
Okay.
Just because you go right down the highway.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. Interesting. So, yeah, I guess your thought process was obviously right on the mark with the market, what was happening with it. I don't know that companies were going to MGP doing innovation and things like that. Probably not, because that wasn't obviously that wasn't their competitive competency, at the time. Like you said, they were building off the shelf stuff. And so I'm sure, so what my point is that you really built this in mind with those companies, the bigger companies with the volume that want to play around with different types of bourbons, add to their volume. It's probably cheaper to go to you and say, hey, can you mimic this same flavor profile? We're going to put it in a can, or whatever the case may be. That's really interesting to me. Not playing around with the little guys or the
it's not necessarily about size, because we have plenty of smaller customers, but it's about the experience. It's about the stability of the company. It's about where the brand is in the market. Yep. So, we have a lot of, we have a good number of brands that we produce for that are on the smaller side, but they've been in the industry for a long time. Or they got a team behind them, or they got a brand, and clearly, they are in a position that doing new fill production and innovation makes sense. So, what we really are doing, and where this business is transformational in this part of the market, is we're consolidating the best brands in the industry into one facility that need this type of production, that want this kind of customer service, that want this type of focus, this, long-term partner. And we saw what was coming in the market, because there was too much capacity being created, which exists now in the contract market. It had too many people that were standing up facilities or quickly building what I call unsophisticated capacity. And that means like you're throwing up a distillery as fast as you can, as cheaply as you can, because they thought they were going to just do investor barrel production. That's what was getting hot during COVID. It looked like it was easy money. But very few people that get into the business understand building a distillery is one thing. Running, operating, being able to not only have the team, the training, the sophistication, the systems, the certification. It goes on and on and on. And what it takes to actually get the business that you need. Most of those people have no idea, and many of them don't. And so there are a lot of facilities that are out there that won't make it.
Well, growing to scale too.
You're going to see that. You're going to see that over the next year. I would tell you, you're going to see a number of these close or go under, and it's not a function of the whiskey market being healthy or not healthy. It's about decisions that were made during a time that with artificial growth where they shouldn't have done certain things.
Gotcha.
And so,
well, maybe it was right for the time, and it's just not right for the time anymore.
it's one way of looking at it. Yes.
That's the optimistic way of looking at it.
It's the optimistic way. What I would say is the other thing is, you're getting into a business that you don't know anything about. And that's always a dangerous thing. And that's certainly one of the things that, if you want to talk about the lessons that I've learned in my life, it takes time to figure it out. And so we're doing it now 3 times. Bardstown was a huge success for us, but this now is a very, very focused piece of Bardstown. And that's one of the things that we learned was like, it's not easy to do what we try to do all in one place. It worked in one moment in time, but it's not necessarily the best solution. So that's why we took Whiskey House and we said, actually, this solves another problem that's very clear. And you only learn those things after you've been in the business, you're immersed in it for a long time, because every business within even certain sectors and segments, it's like the contract market is totally different than the larger bourbon market, right? So they have their own dynamics. They operate completely differently. It just happens to be something we know, we learned a lot about.
Well, and you're a whiskey house, so you make all kinds of whiskeys, I assume, not just bourbon. So you're not
anything in the American whiskey portfolio we can do here.
So how did you guys sit down and start researching and even trying to figure out the equipment that you wanted, and like what was it created, or did you have to have it created?
John knows this stuff like the back of his hand. I mean, for him to be able to, this is like, again, and with Roger, the two of them, be able to say, like, design the place. They've been thinking about this like their whole careers as they've been doing this. It's like, oh, wait a minute, okay, now we get to actually build the perfect facility.
Yeah.
He just, did it nights and weekends, worked on it, and John has all the contacts too. So what made this amazing is with our construction company, Busick, which, we built Bardstown with, which was actually the first distillery they built from scratch. And now they've gone on to build, so many. We were able to move very quickly. We were able to design, build, do all of it in parallel. Whereas, and at we built this about 110 million for this. If one of the big guys, tried to build this, it would be a $200 million bill easily. And you were just able to do lots of things and use a process that saves a tremendous amount of time and money. And again, the only reason we can do it is because we did it. We did it once already.
We did it
once already. We've been through it. We've been through all of it, with multiple expansions too, building from scratch and multiple expansions. And then, you work with a construction team where you can finish sentences with each other, and we're able to do it.
So there's been, the last few years, whiskeys that are they're not bypassing the whiskey process, but they're changing it, right? They're not just you all have the rick houses, you're doing the traditional barrel aging. Are you using staves, or are you finishing whiskey in fun barrels like rum and peach schnapps or whatever, these things?
We will be. Again, for us, we will do anything that the customer wants, right? So, and we'll work with them. The facility that we're building for the palletized warehouse with the climate control zones is all for finishing. Predominantly, we can do some empty barrel storage there, new charred oak. Because of the humidity levels we can store them up to 3 months, just much greater quality control. But yes, so if a customer wants to do it, we'll do it. We've already done, actually, we've had a number of customers early on here that we've done some, filling and some finishing, because we have every capability here. We can do barrels, totes, tanker trucks, everything. Yes. So the short point is, it really is about what the customer wants.
Okay. Well, that's great. So switching gears here, David, do you have any mentors that you want to talk about today that kind of has helped you along your path?
I've had many, right? I've had many. I mean, obviously I'd start with my parents, who were wonderful inspirations. Both came from nothing. my father grew up in Philadelphia. My mother came from Lancaster County, small town out there, Leola, small farming community. And they met in Philadelphia when she was nursing school. My father he retired as a college professor from Drexel in Philadelphia, and my mother, at a very late age, we went to medical school. Actually, when I was 13, 14, became a doctor. And so they were, real inspiration in terms of, people that, were working very hard. And,
Yeah, definitely.
and always, it's always one of those things I think that many, whether you're a guy or a girl, but I think is something that men tend to feel. So, you always want to, try to, be, as successful as your parents, right? And that's, whether that's the right motivation, but no, but I think for many of us, it's always there. And so, as I went forward, David DeCarlo, who I mentioned, that story I told you about when I was at FAA, was a great mentor. The first, partner that I worked for, who's still actually counsel to us now, Matt Samita, was a tremendous mentor. Marion Blakey, who I worked for at National Transportation and FAA, was a great mentor. I learned a lot from her. Not only I learned a tremendous amount from her, but particularly learned a way of dealing with the press and public speaking, and handling very tough situations from a public standpoint. I mean, that's what she was incredible at NTSB and at FAA. So there's a handful of them. I learned a tremendous amount from all of them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Some people are lucky and have the opportunity to have amazing people in their lives.
Well, and the thing is, what was amazing about them is the opportunities that they gave me, and that's where I'm, so grateful, because they gave me opportunities at a time when, I certainly didn't have, the experience to say, oh yes, you're ready to do any of these things. So,
yeah,
they had a lot of faith in me.
Well, and we all kind of fake it till we make it a little bit. Everybody has the imposter syndrome until you go, yeah, shit, I can do this.
Right. No, and I think that's right. But I think that's always, that goes back to the story that I was telling. It's like, I think it's always good to, have that, whether it's a level of humility or, not thinking that you ever know everything, because you don't. The other thing is there's always a black swan out there, right? And it's always lurking on the horizon, and you don't know what it is. And it's, it can take a business town. It can be anything, right? And so not sure what the advice would be there, but it's always lurking out there. And you have to kind of think about that in terms of,
play offense a little bit, or defense,
or how you plan, or what you're thinking about, because it's always there.
Yeah.
You cannot, not necessarily you can do anything about it. That's the nature of the black swan, but, it's there.
But knowing it's there, being aware of it,
and not getting too comfortable anytime,
yeah.
Particularly in business, thinking that you're just going to, you're going to be able to do what you do, forever, and be successful without, whether it's without constantly evolving, without constantly looking at the business. You don't want to get too comfortable.
Yeah. Why?
Somebody's always right there.
Yeah. I guess for me, being a visionary, I don't ever get comfortable. I'm never in a, I'm always wanting to learn, or I'm always wanting to try new things, or explore something else. So yeah, that's good advice. What about resources? Is there anything in particular that you used or used along the way that you want to share with the audience?
Well, I mean, one of the resources that I've used that's been, very helpful to me in my professional career is I've been part of an organization called YPO for the last decade, and it's been extremely, extremely powerful. So if there are people that are listening, that is it's a phenomenal organization.
Okay. Good to know.
President's organization. And it's, it is it's not there are qualifications for getting into it in business, but, and it's an investment, but there's a tremendous amount of reward because you spend a lot of time with other people that are presidents or owners of businesses. And the most valuable thing that they have is something called sharing, where you are, put together with anywhere about 8 other people. And I've been with my firm for 10 years. You meet monthly. It's mandatory. It's completely confidential. And you talk about, there's a process, but you talk about everything that's going on in your business life, your personal life, and you really get, to share and learn from others in a way that you're not, being judged. And that is extremely valuable, particularly when, you could have problems in business, you have problems in your personal life, and there isn't really anybody you can talk to that understands what it's like to be in, the position that you're in.
Yeah, I've heard great things about that organization. Other people have mentioned it on the podcast before, so that's good to know. Yeah,
it's very good. So it's probably one of those resources that I would say have been most impactful for me.
Okay, that's great. What about any pain points that your pain points are specific to your side of the business? But if you want to talk about what you're seeing, maybe even in the American whiskey, business, free to talk about.
Look, it's a very interesting time, and I think it's a time of it's a time of transition. But a lot of this stems from COVID, honestly. So we created an artificial market for a period of time that was not sustainable. I mean, basically everybody was, at home spending, in many cases, the money that they would normally spend on lots of other things on, expensive bottles of whiskey. And it drove a lot of, and this is across the spirits industry, but it drove a lot of things, during that period where you had too many products created, too many people getting involved in the business. Basically anybody that could buy any aged whiskey, stick it in a bottle, distributors would buy it. So you created a lot of excess inventory in the, at the retail level. You had facilities that shouldn't have been built. You had facilities that shouldn't have been expanded. And, and this is not just whiskey, but this is across, all spirits. And then, of course, it's over. Everybody's released, and, spending habits change very quickly. They go back to the way they were. And so you also lay that over with, it's some, economic challenges, high inflation. You've got, a lot of different, issues there going on, and people are cutting back on what they're spending. And so I think it's a transitory period. There is a lot of talk about younger demographics, not drinking and drinking differently, and cannabis and all of these things. I think those are all, they're all important trends to be aware of, but I don't think there is, as immediately impacting everything as much as the things that I just mentioned. I think, we're seeing probably 2025 will be a challenging year, but this is going to be a year where we continue to kind of a lot of things have to work themselves out. That, again, of these things that I just mentioned, have to kind of clear out some of the clutter, on the inventory level on the brand side. Some companies won't make it, but then there's going to be kind of I think we'll be facing a good situation, because American whiskey fundamentals are very strong. They're still strong. Domestically, there is long-term, not short-term, but long-term tremendous upside in the international market. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 5 years. You're talking 10 to 20 years, but there's massive potential down the road. And so there's a lot to be planning for.
Yeah. As I'm getting into the cruise lines, duty-free export market, I'm learning more and more. And I do think, I've been to Europe a few times. I haven't been recently, but you've got Jack Daniels and me. There might have been another bourbon, but there certainly
How
wasn't
much?
the availability, and obviously it's expensive too, right? So
Right.
that's kind of a barrier just because of, affording it.
Sure.
But yeah, I completely agree.
So
From
you're
what I
seeing, I
understand,
mean, you're seeing a lot of the same things out there.
yeah.
Oh,
And I will say, in terms of the market and the transitions, you're on point with all the executives I had on. I've spoken to outside of the podcast. I've had on the podcast. I was talking to David, I think earlier, about a roundtable that we just recorded with different women and uh, throughout the industry in different positions, and so they're all saying the same thing about this transitional period, 2025. Um, and it's interesting too when you think about when we were in COVID, and okay, well, how long is this going to take to really get out of it, right? And if you talk to, you know, the people in the medical industry, they're like 2025. Yeah, it's going to be 2025. And you're like, okay, well, I could see that. And, as we had ships, yes, hanging out for months in the ports, for how long? Ugh, that was such a nightmare. But, um, you know, I don't know. I mean, 2025 is it the year where we kind of get back to normal? What is this transition kind of period going to look like? And I think we all don't really know. But to your point, the fundamentals are there. We're not in a recession, right? I think one thing to note that we did talk a little bit on the podcast that I don't know a lot about, but personal debt is at the highest level it's been ever. That's scary to me. That's a very scary metric.
yep.
Because then that means they're one house payment away from making the next one, right? That's not good.
No.
So,
No.
we don't know at 25. I mean, we never know what you're up against, the new year. But I will say, just in terms of, feedback, I guess, or just a dialogue, is that's very much in concept with many other people in the industry. For the
Yeah,
people.
no, I think that's right. And I think you're right. I mean, it's that, that is why you see spending habits change. There's a lot of pressure, and, let's hope. And then there's one way out of it. You got to grow our way out of it. So that's really the
Yep.
only pathway forward. It's got to grow the economy. And so hopeful that, will take place. And so, look, there are a lot of things that people talk about in the industry. There's a lot of talk about tariffs and how it's going to impact all of these things. And again, it's too early to see. Like, we just got to wait and see, because, again, you can't predict all of these things. But, that I think, again, in the grand scheme of things, we're looking at longer cycles. This is I think this is short term. And, we'll see how everybody comes through this and where we end up on the other side. But it's certainly looking like we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think the growth in these other segments is going to continue and to your point, I think you nailed it. Like, the fundamentals are healthy, right? And that's good. That's going to help our industry stay on point. Healthy.
That's right. I mean, look, and, there's all sorts of different reports, and, and I've go to a lot of the different conferences, and, you'll hear everything from, younger demographic is, not drinking. Younger demographic is drinking better, but less. So I'll tell you that the younger demographic, you don't know yet how they're going to drink, because think about your drinking habits in your 20s. Like, I know in my early 20s, I was drinking beer, right? And so it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I was, in my late 20s, early 30s, that I was transitioning towards cocktails, and really enjoying that. And so there's still a lot that's unknown as to what, this, younger generation, how those habits will develop, if they will develop the same way or they'll develop differently. What impact does cannabis have? We don't really know yet. How much of it is eating into the market share? Probably some of it. And, the data that comes from, you look at Tilray Brands and, what's going on with them in Canada. They have some interesting data on changing habits there. But again, it's early to say, that it's going to have an earth, changing effect. And also then, if it does domestically change more, does that mean it's going to be international the same way? You've got, something like, I forget the number of people, somewhere in the range of like 100 million people each year in India, are coming of age, drinking age. So whiskey culture, is it shifting? Can that culture shift, to bourbon and to American whiskey? Well, the big companies are working on it. It won't happen overnight, but if it does, and it moves, away from India whiskey and Scotch and more towards bourbon, over a 10, 20-year period, that's enormous, right? So you don't know how these things balance out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a huge market over there for sure.
Just won't happen. I think one of the misconceptions is that it's an easy answer for short-term issues. It's not. Still pricing is very low. International competition, selling, it's very, very low cost. It's going to take time to change because you're talking,
Yeah,
decade or more.
I don't know what the drinking culture is there. I've never been. But I dated an Indian when I was in college, and they never drank in front of their parents. It wasn't a social thing. It was a respect thing. And so, I don't know what exists today or what that looks like for that culture. But I would say that I'm sure for the traditional families, there's still some of that. Now, that's not to say they're when they go out with their friends and and do their own thing, they're not going to drink or do whatever. But I do know back then, and this is 20, 25 years ago, something like that,
Or whatever.
But yeah, whatever, like 5 minutes ago, I don't know.
Right.
So, and yeah, I remember when Southern went into that market years ago. I'm pretty sure. It's a process. That's a whole cultural process right there in itself. So, but at least there's an ear for, okay, hey, there's another potential market that's going to come online at some point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. It's just it's not immediate. It's it's long term, but again, the fundamentals are there.
Any other outlook points you want to make, or anything else that you want to?
No, we're very excited. We're very excited for how the business is performing, where we're headed, what we're seeing, in our segment of the market. And so, we're very optimistic and very excited for 2025 and beyond. So, it's been great, and it's been very rewarding.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I congratulate you and your team and your partners
to have the vision. See us.
Oh, I'd love to. I've got to get out there.
Yep, you just let me know.
Okay,
we'll take you through.
I'd love to get out and do the Bourbon Trail and swing by there, and just spend some time. And I've been able to interview some amazing people. And I will tell you this, just swinging back to you, being from Philadelphia, I bet 10 or 12% of the people that I've interviewed on this podcast are from there.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to me.
There's them.
Must be in the blood there, just to be entrepreneurs.
Maybe. It's not something I ever anticipated I would be doing. So
that's great. So, do you have any passions that you have that is outside of work that you want to share? Get to know you a little bit.
Look, so much of it is work, but obviously I spend a tremendous amount of time with my children, my significant other. I do a lot of traveling. I enjoy it, from a recreational standpoint. It's something we really like doing. And so, but a lot of beyond those two things, beyond that, a lot of it is obviously focused on the business these days, because it's early days again. So.
Yep. I just interviewed Mikashina, who has mochi gummies, mochi gummies, and they're amazing. Your kids, your wife, they'll love them. It's for all ages because they're not super sweet.
Yep.
But they still get you that little fruit flavor of goodness.
Mochi gummies.
Yeah, and she even made them so that you want more, and so you like the bags aren't very big. You just kind of eat the whole thing. Are
they made in the United States? Yep.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, she was born in Japan and moved when she was 8. and started the company. And her first hit was Central Market.
Wow.
Yeah, Central
That's
Market.
great.
Yeah, Central Market. Yeah, Central Market. I think it was. Can't remember, but yeah, it was just a sample she sent, and then within 2 years, she's on the cover of Inc. magazine.
It's amazing. It's great. This is a wonderful story.
Anyway, the point is that she has a family too and children, and she said, the first 2 years, she said, founders don't talk about this, but the first 2 years, you really have to put everything you've got into this business. You're gonna work at a lot of other things, but it's worth it because you're building your own business. You're putting all the efforts into the right place.
Yeah, no, it's a very rewarding process. There's no question, but it's not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. I speak to a lot of younger groups. It's about business and entrepreneurship, and we place a lot of romance in it too. But it's also very hard, and you've got to be able to lots of highs and also a lot of lows, and you got to be up for that, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with finding a stable job and working in a company and, building your way up and creating a career. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Starting your own business is fabulous. It's great. But you got to know going into it, you got to have the stomach to do it or develop it.
Yep. Yeah. Every day's Groundhog Day.
That's right.
Every day's Monday.
Yeah. And
Right?
there's always a problem.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to figure out how to work through them.
Yep. So it is very rewarding and a lot of fun.
It is. It certainly can be.
Yeah. Well, David, it's been amazing to meet you and to talk with you and to learn about your journey and, the outstanding team that you have built around you and what you guys are doing is certainly, forging innovation at a high level. Right? I mean, what you guys are doing is really incredible. And I'm just so appreciative that you had time to
It's my
sit down with me.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to meeting you in person at some point.
Yeah, we'll do it. Or an event. We'll have to connect.
That's fine too. That's fine.
Do you go to a lot of industry events?
I do. Most of them are focused really more now around this part of the market, this segment.
Yeah.
But yes, I do. I go to WSWA. I go to the big conferences each year. I go to Market Watch in New York every March. Going to Pro Wine here coming up in Germany.
Okay, I might head to Pro Wine this year actually.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Let me know. We'll be there.
Okay. Yeah, we might get a table, and get our international business going. I've been to Pro Wine before, and it was remarkable. It's one of the greatest, as an industry person, it's one of the greatest experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, it's a big event.
Yeah, I had a winemaker from Moldova that made a Chardonnay that made me cry. I'm not kidding. It was so good. So good. I mean, the Portuguese wine portfolio, we don't know anything about it over here. And it's just, they're so good. But nobody can pronounce them.
It definitely had an impact on you.
Yeah. Well, I was, this is in 2014 before I got into the military side of the business, but I was going to build my own importing business and, yeah, it's really hard. I'm not doing that now. I'm just building a portfolio of brands to sell. As far as I'm concerned, the market's good here. We got enough people selling.
Yep.
Not a lot of people selling outside of the U.S. So,
that's wonderful. Well, good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, well, I'll let you get back to it. And
thank you.
Happy holidays.
You too.
And Happy New Year.
Same. Have a wonderful one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Produced by Fedora J Productions.